Ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Hey everyone, welcome back to Indicted TV. I'm your host Negra. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram. Before we start, you already know I gotta give a shout out to my sponsors, Royalty Honey. Keep it hard, guys. Also for the best jewelry for his glory, and for the most fires, Cali Plug, and for the best Chinese food, Mr. Yu's in Montclair. On today's episode, we have Scott Budnick. Welcome to Indicted TV.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
No, you know what? It's an honor. I can't wait to hear all about you. Obviously, you know, you're the man, bro. You are the man.
No, I'm just a guy.
No, you're the man. You're the man.
You're very sweet. Thank
you.
Good for my ego.
Yeah, that's what I got to do a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, Scott, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? How was the inside of your house growing up?
I was lucky. I was very lucky. Grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a doctor.
Ooh.
And so it was a pretty stable household. Have a brother 3 years younger. I would say that everything was fine until my parents had a pretty hardcore divorce. I was 15 years old. I was in high school. I think compared to the trauma that of all the kids I work with in juvenile hall, it's not much. But like in that moment when I was 15 years old and everything kind of blew up, it felt big.
But it is big. Everybody has different types of trauma, and just because the juveniles go through different things doesn't mean that yours wasn't, traumatic to yourself.
I mean, I think my brother went towards drugs and alcohol when like our stability blew up, and I'm like, I remember crying in the shower the day I found out, and then after that I never cried again, and I just like poured my heart into like starting a DJ business, and I started DJing, and I became a big DJ in Atlanta.
Oh, nice. So you never, like you said, your brother went through the getting in trouble route, and you just focused on music.
Yeah, but I also feel like because I didn't process it at 15 years old, I'm still dealing with that today.
Okay.
And so I've had to work through that today. But yeah, I just went straight into like work.
Never looked back.
Yeah, never looked back.
Okay. So tell us, so you went to school, you started working, you were a DJ. Did you graduate? Did you do all of that?
Yeah, I went to college. I graduated. I'd been interning in college on movie sets in Atlanta.
Okay.
And then I'd be coming out here to LA to intern for the summer. So I interned on Baywatch my first semester. Then I interned in a talent agency, and then I moved out here. Literally packed my bags up the day of my graduation in college and drove across the country.
And what year is this? Just so that we could get a...
99, baby. 99.
Those are the most wildest years of my life.
Exactly. And then, drove across the country and got my first apartment and tried to find a job. Thought I had a 4-year college degree. This was going to be easy. And went on 5 job interviews, no call back. 10, no call back. 20, 30, no call back. Got to the point of like ramen soup and macaroni and cheese and like not being able to afford my apartment anymore and having to look at moving in with somebody because I couldn't afford rent. And then ended up getting a call from DreamWorks about a movie called Road Trip. If you remember that one.
I do.
Yeah. And so I went, there's a young director named Todd Phillips who was coming out of film school to do his first movie. It was a comedy called Road Trip. And I decided to go become a production assistant. Then I became a casting assistant. Then he saw how hard I was working. I would show up every day early. I would stay late. I'd work my ass off. I'd be grateful. I'd be humble. And he's like, I want you to be my assistant. So I was his assistant. And then after Road Trip, he wrote a movie called Old School. And he said, I want you to come back, but I want you to be a little junior producer on this one. And that started 14 years together.
And what does a junior producer consist of?
Junior producer is just, I'm no longer like, when I was his assistant, I was like making him coffee and making him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and like doing what nobody wanted to be doing. And then as a junior producer, funny enough, my real first producer credit was on Starsky and Hutch, which was our third movie.
Okay.
And it was my job to handle Snoop. And my orders from the producers were, it's your job to keep Snoop sober.
Oh,
Because
dang.
when we're making a movie, every day costs like $250,000 a day to pay all the crew and actors and everything.
Yes.
So if Snoop was going to be late or not show up or whatever it may be, we'd lose $250,000 a day.
Yeah.
And so I'll say this: the entire shoot, Snoop was sober.
Oh,
He
you
was-
did good then.
Yeah, no. He was coaching his kids' football team.
Okay.
So he was sober the entire time. He showed up early every day to work. He was playing a character called Huggy Bear that he wanted to play his entire life. He grew up watching the TV show and wanting to play this pimp that was on the show. And he made me look really, really good. And so
Look at
that's
you
what
now.
kind of blew me up.
Yeah. So what went next?
What next was Hangover.
And that's your movie.
Yeah, that's my baby. Writers came into my office and said, "Hey, we had a general meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, I said, pitch me an idea." And they looked at each other like, "Should we tell him? Should we tell him?" They're like, "Okay, we kind of have this idea of a bachelor party. They go to Vegas, but they get so fucked up they can't remember what happened the night before, and the groom is missing 2 days before his wedding, and the whole movie's like an investigation." Trying to figure out what happened the night before to find the guy to get him back for his wedding. And I thought it was a genius movie. So we started with a 2-sentence idea and then turned it into an outline, turned it into a script. Ended up making it for $30 million.
Because that is a dope movie.
Made it for $30 million and it made $477 million worldwide. So it became a massive hit. And kind of one of the, I think Hangover and Project X are like the things I'm known for.
I think you're known for way more than that.
Ah, that's sweet. Thank you.
But you work so hard to achieve everything that that you're doing. It's not like, oh, I'm so sweet. No, like you work hard, bro. Like you have put so much work into, like, I'm sure everything that you do, from you starting in school. You just never like stop working on yourself. You could have just been like your brother.
True
Not
story.
like, I'm not like being disrespectful towards your brother or anything,
Yeah.
or like myself. Like
He really turned it around and he's doing unbelievable now.
oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to your brother,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you focused on you. And even though you said that you just didn't work on yourself and you just started to work, it still helped.
Yeah,
It still helped.
for sure.
And now you're
And I
working on
think
it.
just like starting from the bottom in the film business and being a production assistant and just like having to do the bottom of the barrel stuff and still showing up early, staying late, working my ass off, having a good attitude. It's like, it's what I tell everyone when they're coming out of jail, prison, whatever they want to go into. If they want to come into my business, if they want to go into construction or firefighting or whatever they end up want to do, like show up earlier than everyone, work harder than everyone, be more grateful than everyone.
Yep. You
and
know what?
you will win
And
every
that's
time.
exactly what I tell the guys as well. I tell them, like, work so much that I tell them, like, work so much that all you want to do is just go home and just relax.
Yep.
At least until you get off probation and then you get other stuff going on.
For sure.
Because your main purpose is for you to get off parole.
Amen.
And sometimes they don't even allow themselves to get out because they're just, as soon as they get home, they want to be out
Yep.
partying. And it's like, no, you got to work. So you could be tired. And the longer you stay out, the more you realize how you feel freedom.
I think the same thing. It's like, obviously, like the gang lifestyle will get you caught up, right? Out here, if you get out and go back to that. But the partying lifestyle can also be just as dangerous,
I
right?
feel like it's more dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, the partying lifestyle, if you aren't prioritizing your family, your work, your income before everything else, like I've seen people go back, they've stayed away from violence, they've stayed away from all of that, but they get so caught up in like wanting to relive their glory years that they missed or whatever it
Yeah.
may be, that they're right back inside and now they've lost another 10 years of their life.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Because I'm sure you've seen millions. I've seen so many as well.
Yeah.
So tell me, Scott, what brings you, you're on Indicted TV, right? So
Yeah.
Indicted TV is, you have to have some kind of prison experience. So tell us about you are the founder of the ARC program.
Yes.
Can you tell us what that is for the people that don't know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was on Old School, which was my second movie, I met someone who said, like, come down to Somar Juvenile Hall. They teach a creative writing class called Inside Out Writers. And they wanted me to come down and just be a guest speaker for one day. And I'm like, that sounds like a cool Saturday morning. So it was 2004. And I went down to Silmar Juvenile Hall, Barry J. Nydorf, and sat in this creative writing class. And there were about 12 kids around the table, 14, 15, 16 years old. And I looked at the kid next to me and I said, how was your week? And he said, it was a really tough week. I just got sentenced to 300 years to life in prison. And my heart broke. And I said, what happened? And he said, I stood next to my homie who shot the victim in the butt. The victim was in and out of the hospital in a day. And for standing next to the guy with the gun, I'm going to prison for 300 years to life. And that was just like, that was mind blowing to me. And I realized, like, if that was my kid, if that kid had my resources, he'd be out on bail, right? He wouldn't be sitting in that juvenile hall. And he'd have the best lawyer in LA that would probably get him probation for that offense. But this young man, this 15-year-old, this kid who was barely 5 feet tall, was going to prison for 300 years to life. And like, that's unacceptable. Like, I can't live in a city, a state, a county where we would do that to a child, right? Like, I knew I made mistakes. I never got arrested, but I made mistakes when I was young. I made mistakes that if I did get caught for, I probably would have gotten into a lot of trouble and I would have been arrested. So how can we believe that something that someone does when they're a child, even if it's horrible and it's violent, will define them for the rest of their lives? Like, that doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. And so we went around that table and I realized that, like, all of those kids, like, hadn't had any real chance at life, right? Unstable homes, witnessing domestic violence, witnessing violence at a very young age, abuse, etc. And like, it was very clear, like, this was all about, like, that quote, hurt people, mm-hmm. right? And like, all of these kids, before they ever decided to victimize anybody, were victims themselves, right? And victims of so much trauma that a young person doesn't know how to deal with, right? My little tiny trauma, which was my parents' divorce, I didn't know how to deal with. Now imagine if it's my parents' divorce and it's witnessing a friend get killed and it's witnessing domestic violence and whatever it may be. Like, I could really empathize in that moment to those kids. And I just said to them on that day, if you guys are willing to mature and work on yourself and become mature young men, I'm willing to start coming in here every day. And I came in there starting in 2004, teaching that class every Saturday. And every Saturday that I'm in town, today, 20 years later, I'm in there as well. I was in there yesterday.
Is that how you started to transition from the filming to what you're doing to the ARC program? Or how was that for you?
I mean, after Hangover 3 and I was doing a movie called War Dogs, I was getting so much more joy out of helping young people in juvenile hall or going into prisons and meeting people that were in college and in self-help groups and really doing this work. I realized that, like, people in prison were doing so much more work on themselves than any of my friends in the movie business who haven't done any change, aren't working with themselves at all. And so after War Dogs, I said, I'm going to leave the business. I'm going to take a 90% pay cut. I'm going to leave my position of power, and I want to start a nonprofit. And making 90% less money was hands down the best 5 years of my life. I started an organization called ARC. The mission was to help people inside prisons, jails, juvenile halls, and to help people coming home from prisons, jails, juvenile halls find their best self, elevate in ways where they can support themselves, their families, their children for the rest of their lives. I was sick of other people setting the bar really low, like, oh, it's a success if you don't go back to prison. Yeah, that's one success. But if you're stuck in a minimum wage job for the rest of your life and you're never able to elevate and buy your own house or send your kids to a decent school or get, like, that's not success. No, like, the people that I've met in jails, prisons, and juvenile halls are some of the most creative, the smartest, the biggest hearts, the most empathy. And so I'm setting the bar here, right? And so we were able to start the largest construction union training program in the world that places people immediately after 12 weeks directly into the union. So if you come out of prison, we pay you for 12 weeks of training, and then you're immediately in the union for life. And we guarantee your first union job. We're able to start programs along with this program, Hollywood CPR at West LA College, to get people coming out of prisons, jails, juvenile halls into my business, right? The unions in my business. The unions in the film and television business pay $48 an hour.
Damn,
Time and a half
right
after
there.
8. Double time after 12. You're making $96 an hour in overtime. So I've had hundreds of people come into my business.
So
We
good.
were able to pass a bill that allows people now to go into CAL FIRE and firefighting and now expunge their entire records. And so that's another career.
You've passed a lot of, well, a lot of laws. I think was it like 30 something that I saw?
Yeah. You know what I realized real quick, especially in Sacramento where these laws are made, that when you have the voices and the stories of formerly incarcerated people who have really done the work, right? Have gone in and worked on themselves, worked on their traumas, gone to college, done these sort of things, and they come home. Like the people I work with that come home from prison, all they want to do is stop kids from going down that same path, right? They want to help kids not have to go through all those traumas that they
Yes,
went through,
I
right?
agree.
And so taking formerly incarcerated people to Sacramento, giving them their voice. Like I know as the Hangover producer and the Project X producer, like I can get the doors open, but I also know when to shut up, right? Like my story is not the important story. It's the story of those that are with me, right?
Yes.
And so being able to tell those stories, whether we're telling those stories to legislators, whether we're telling those stories to law enforcement, to victims groups, whatever it may be, those stories change people, right? And so we were able to pass SB 260 and SB 261 and SB 9.
And what are those?
Ending life without parole.
Okay.
For juveniles, right? Ending extreme sentences for juveniles and young adults all the way up to age 25, right? So over 20,000 people in prison that were sentenced to die in prison as young people now get the chance to go to the parole board at 15, 20, 25 years. The only thing I haven't been able to accomplish, and it's my number one goal for this year, is to end life without parole sentences. I feel like the biggest tragedy in the system is not giving people hope.
Yes.
I think everybody in prison needs hope. And
Yes.
saying someone that your only ability to get out is to die in prison is hopeless. It believes that people don't have the ability to change. And I'm really like,
We
I'm a
do change.
absolutely. I mean, you're right. Like I'm a person of faith. I believe in redemption. I believe in forgiveness. I believe that people can change. And so my number one goal is to end life without parole, and we're going to do it this year.
That's right. Amen. So you obviously go into prisons every day. You say
Yeah.
you were going to go into prison right now, right? What is your process like? Do you have to squat and cough as well? Like, I don't know. Tell us a little bit about your process to enter a prison.
Well, now that I'm back in the movie business, right? So like my main job is being a CEO of my film company, One Community. So I don't get to go as much, but I still go into juvenile hall every Saturday, and still try to go into one or two prisons every month. And like I started out, like when I first started, I would go to the visiting room just like anyone else and sit and order out of the vending machines and sit with someone in a visiting room. But as I started kind of doing ARC and doing this work more, I got my state ID and was able to go in through the front door and be able to like run programs and mentor people and talk to people. We were able to start what's called the ARC Hope and Redemption Team. So today we have over 30 ex-lifers who all did over 20, 30, 40 years in prison, who now have the same badge I do, who go back inside prison now as free men to run programs, help people,
How cool
get
is
people
that?
ready for board. It's the most incredible thing ever. Never would have thought 10 years ago the system would ever do this, right? But the governor went to the wardens meeting of all the wardens of all like 33 prisons, and he said, what's the most effective program in your prisons? And the warden said to the governor, the ARC Hope and Redemption Team. And the governor said, why is that? And they said, because it's guys that actually used to be in here wearing these clothes that are in there showing if you do X, Y, and Z to change, you can come home. And that's why it's the most, that's because they're credible messengers, right? They're credible to the population. And so I love going inside. I love talking to people. I think Pelican Bay is probably my favorite place.
I was going to ask you, so which one is your favorite place?
I think Pelican Bay. After we passed SB 260, we were able to go up to Pelican Bay, specifically the Pelican Bay SHU, and meet with about 120 guys that were in the Pelican Bay SHU who committed their crime under the age of 25, and tell them they now have a chance to come home. And I remember, and there were guys back there who had been in the SHU for 25, 30, 35 years,
Wow.
who had never touched a human being for 25, 30, 35 years. And I went back there and they escorted all of these guys back to these cages in the visiting area. And like me and a bunch of lawyers and people that worked on the legislation got to talk with every single of the 120. We would rotate and we'd go from cage to cage to cage and talk to everybody.
Because they had to keep them in cages.
Yeah, because it was in the SHU, right? They were all in separate cages. And I remember this man coming out, and I'm talking to him about the law. And I'm like, under this law, you actually can go, he had a over 100-year sentence and he thought he was going to die in prison. I said, under this law, you actually are immediately eligible for a parole hearing. And this man started tearing up. And he said, this is the first bit of hope I've had in 30 years. And I said, well, I want it to be more than hope. It's actually real. You're going to be going to the board, right? And I stuck my pinky finger through the cage, and he stuck his pinky finger through, and we shaked pinkies through the little hole in the cage. And he said, you're the first person I've touched in 30 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And that moment touched me forever. The guys in the SHU ended up doing a hunger strike and were able to protest against solitary confinement. And the ones that were in there for indeterminate SHU terms were able to get out. And I was able to see this man on the yard when he was in college, a math tutor, doing everything he can. And it was just unbelievable to see that change, right? To see what a little bit of hope does. And so Pelican Bay is just a special place to me. I feel like the culture amongst the incarcerated people in those yards are very pro-program. They have more people in college inside Pelican Bay than in almost any prison in the state. The culture amongst the incarcerated people are amazing. The culture amongst the staff has begun to turn and has
They
been
probably
very
see the difference.
Yeah, they've been very supportive to ARC. And so it's also probably the most beautiful place on earth. Like when anyone wants to talk shit about California, I'm like, go to the border of California and Oregon, right where the ocean meets the redwood forest, and you can't talk shit after that. Like, it is the most beautiful place on earth. It is pure peace and tranquility. It's wild that this notorious prison is carved out of the redwoods right there. But again, at Pelican Bay, I've met some of the men with some of the biggest hearts, some of the biggest change, incredible artists, incredible intelligence. And we have so many guys that have gotten released from Pelican Bay into the community and are being the change they want to see in the world.
Yes.
They're changing the community.
That's thanks to you and your hard work as well.
I'm one
Plus
of
their
many.
work as
I'm one
well.
of many. I'm one of many.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm one of many. But like, I feel like, I think it was a place where like nobody wanted to focus, right? It was so far away. It was the worst of the
Yeah, and it
worst. It
seems
was
kind
the
of
end
scary.
of the line.
Yeah.
It's not scary, man. It's like you can see when there's hope injected into a system, you could see it. It's like oxygen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love going to Pelican Bay. And I love the men that have created that culture on those yards to be cultures not of violence, but of education and programs and peace.
When people feel, like you said, hope, it changes everything.
Yep.
People, especially if they've been, like you said, they've been there 30, 40 years and they have this opportunity to go home. And I mean, you're still in the good yard and all of that. It makes everything be smoother for the guards and for everything just in general. So that's super beautiful. I love that. You know, and I'm sure you're going to continue to do this for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, it at this point, it means much more to me than movies, or anything having to do with movies. And it's like the worlds intersect, right? People
Yeah.
that worked with me in the entertainment business are now my partners on prison work. And really, when you introduce people, you know what I've realized? Like, this is the true story. When you bring anyone into a prison to have a relationship with someone that's incarcerated and to see them as a human being, to sit at a table, to break bread together, to pray together, to talk together, whatever it may be, they change. I don't care if they're a cop, member of law enforcement, a victim of crime, or they're just some progressive person, they're a celebrity, an athlete, a movie star, whatever it is. You bring people inside a prison to meet another human being, whatever they've thought about crime and gangs and all of that for decades of their life, it's all changed.
Because they actually see and they feel.
They see and they feel. And like, I made a movie called Just Mercy, which was story about Bryant Stevenson, the huge civil rights lawyer that's gotten so many people out of prison. He's played by Michael B. Jordan, the actor from Creed, right? In the movie. And Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx plays the innocent man on death row. And like that movie right there, like that's changed so many hearts and minds. And Bryan Stevenson, who's the lawyer that Michael B. Jordan plays, always say that if you want to change people, you have to bring them proximate to human suffering.
Yes.
When people are brought proximate to human suffering, they change.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's major, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
No, super.
I appreciate you.
Tell me about Kim.
The notorious Kim Kardashian.
Did you take her to Pelican Bay?
Yeah, we went to Pelican Bay. Yeah, she was blown away by Pelican Bay. You know what? Like I said, like leaving my position of power in the film business and taking 90% pay cut, like the craziest thing happens. And I was sitting in New York and I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. And it said, "Hey, Scott, my name's Kim Kardashian West. This person.
Did you read it in her voice?
No, I didn't. I'm like, this person told me about you. I've been watching what you're doing and I really want to learn from you." I'm like, this can't be real. So I'm like, "Can you talk?" And like, we got on the phone. I'm like, "Oh, wow, it's really her." And I said, "Listen, like in next week, I'm going to be back in LA and I'm going to go to CIW, the women's prison. And I really like working with the women and they're unbelievable. Almost all of them are in there for something a man did. And if you think the men are traumatized, wait till you meet the women. They've been through 10 times more.
And you know what's crazy about women? I always say this. Men never hold it down.
Yep.
And these men want to be crying that their girls left. Like, bro, just accept it. I just had to talk shit a little bit.
Yeah. So I said, "Kim, do you want to come down and meet the women?" She's like, "I'll be there." And she shows up with one security. It's 120 degrees. She drove 2 hours. And she went in there for like 3 or 4 hours. No phone. And was just present to the women. They were all gushing over her and going crazy. She said, "Listen, I just want to listen to you and learn from you. I'm going to be quiet. Tell me your stories. Tell me about your experiences." And I was blown away by how humble she was. And since then, we've gone to multiple prisons. We went to Pelican Bay.
How are the guys?
It was great. It was kind of, we did some filming in the community, but we didn't bring any cameras into the prison. We went in, we got to go to the shoe and sit with guys that were in the shoe and have very, very emotional conversations that I think will stick with us forever. Got to sit, have a conversation with guys on the other side of cages, right? That's not a normal experience. That's an intense experience.
For sure.
Got to go up to A-Yard.
What's A-Yard?
A-Yard's a level 4, like hardcore yard that for years and years and years was a very violent place. And then once everyone came out of the shoe, violence went to almost nothing. And programming skyrocketed up and college skyrocketed up. And lots of self-help programs, whole different culture. And we went and sat in the gym with about 30, 40, 50 guys in a huge circle and had another very deep conversation. And then we left the prison and we're just all like, wow, that was intense. And we went to one of my favorite restaurants, the Chart Room, which is like a great seafood restaurant right on the harbor. And we brought like 10 members of the ARC Hope and Redemption team, 10 ex-lifers.
Oh, wow.
And she got to have lunch on the water.
I think I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, that was on her show. That was on the Kardashians,
'Cause you're not
right?
watching.
We were able to film outside of the prison.
Got
We weren't able to film inside Pelican Bay.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, and that was such a learning experience for her. So it's been amazing. She's brought her sister Chloe on some of the visits. She's brought her sister Kendall on some of the visits. And it's been really, really, her mom came. It's been really, really.
I'm like, how's Chris? Just
what's
kidding.
that?
I'm like, how's Chris?
Chris is unbelievable. We went on a trip down to Donovan to meet with to do an LWOP visit that the Menendez brothers, who are obviously in the culture right now, were part of. Kim, the guy who created the show that Kim's doing right now, created Monsters, which is the show that was about the Menendez brothers. And so Kim knew an actor named Cooper who played Eric Menendez on the show. So we were able to bring Cooper down to meet the guy he played on the show. And this visit was the inspiration for the LWOP bill that we're going to do this year, that Kim and Chris and the Kardashian family are going to play a huge role in.
That's good.
Helping us pass, right? And again, this is going to be a huge, heavy lift. We're going to try to get some law enforcement leaders in support, or at least neutral on the bill, so that everyone's not opposed to it. We have some victims of crime who believe in the power of hope and second chances that are going to support the bill.
Oh, that's very nice. Because obviously, as you know, when a mother loses their son or daughter, and the person is in prison, and they see like, hey, you know what? He is remorseful. That's beautiful that she could forgive. Forgiveness is everything.
I think it's everything.
And it helps a mother heal more than anything.
Yeah, I feel like when I see what mothers go through on both sides of this, right? Mothers who are have their children incarcerated and lost to the system forever, and mothers whose kids were killed by violence. I think that gets me the most. One of my mentors, Javier Starring, who runs an incredible group, Healing Dialogue and Action, actually brings together mothers whose kids are serving life sentences with mothers whose kids were murdered. And it's a mother's support group. It's a mother's support group. And it's one of the most powerful things that I've ever seen. And like, let's just be real for a second. Like, this system is not healing for anybody.
No, not at all.
It's not healing for anyone that's worked in it. It's not healing for any families of victims. It's not even healing for anyone, right? If you're in the system, if you're a victim of crime, or if you work in the system, it's a traumatizing system for everybody. So the more we can create healing for these mothers, the more we're going to help everybody, right? Yes. And like, that is right now, I'm motivated by the mothers, and I feel like that's who I work for.
Aw. Tell me about Kobe. You work with Kobe.
Man.
He helped each other. Rest in peace, Kobe.
Yeah, that was my guy.
To the legend.
I loved him. It's funny. This is how we came together. A woman who was running Kobe Inc., which was his company. Her name was Andrea. She came into the county jail for a seminar. ARC was, I think it was for something we were doing with maybe the Chamber of Commerce or something, or the unions. I think it was the unions. And we had a whole group in the chapel inside the county jail. And she went back and she told Kobe about it. And Kobe's like, I want to learn more. Will Scott come down to Newport Beach and tell me about it? So I come down to Newport Beach.
Were you like, oh man, Kobe?
Bro, I was such a big fan. I was like a fanboy of this dude. And so I get down there and he comes out, daps me up. We sit down, and for an hour, he's like grilling me with questions about jails and prisons and juvenile halls and kids and laws and sentences. And he goes, if I'm going to get involved in this, he goes, like, what about all the victims' families and like the mothers and all of this? And we talked about the same thing you and I talked about with healing, right? So he wanted to know every aspect of it, every side of it, right? And he was so inquisitive, and his mind was just wild in terms of like how he was thinking. And then a year later, he was retiring, and he wanted to go into the movie business, right? And so he called me back again and like picked my brain for 2 hours about movies. In the movie business, he ended up winning an Academy Award. And we were even in talks and having him invest in my new film company. But like where like my heart fell in love with him, and Kobe was also somebody, if I told him there was something happening, he's like, okay, I'll be there. No, you have to pay me, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. He goes, no, I'll be there. And he showed up.
Nice.
And I made this movie, Just Mercy, about an innocent man on death row. And he said, Scott, I
The
really
one we just spoke about.
Yeah, the one we just spoke about. He's like, I really want to take my daughter to see it. It was like 3 months before it was coming out. I'm like, Kobe, I'll screen it for you. So we got an empty movie theater in Newport Beach, snuck him in the back door, and him and his daughter got to watch Just Mercy, called me afterwards, super emotional. And he said, what do you want me to do? I go, how about you do some screenings for the community? And he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy some theaters for kids in the community that can't afford to go to the movie because I want them to see the movie. And I'm back in Philly where I'm from. I'm going to buy out some theaters so people can see it for free. And he did that. Just spent his own money and did that so people couldn't go afford to see the movie.
It helps with your heart. When you do things for the community, it helps your heart. That's a part of healing, giving back. You know, we might not do as big as you do, but you know, like we do like little things as well. You know, tomorrow we're doing a turkey giveaway. Saturday we gave food plates out, and it does help your heart. It helps when you're doing these big things. I'm sure that's healing you.
I mean, I feel like the people that I like to work with are people that like every day realize that like their job on this planet is to serve others, right? And whether it's someone that's got out of prison that all they want to do is serve others for the rest of their life, if it's a producer, if it's a Kim Kardashian or a Kobe, or it's you, right? Like
I feel like this helps me with others.
Yeah, like I feel like the people that I care about are like, I'm in the movie business. I deal with a lot of narcissists, a lot of egos, a lot of self-centered people. Like when I meet somebody who wants to help change someone else's life, that's what inspires me. This is why I do this.
Let me ask you now that you said that. So how do you go from, you go with, and you're in prison and you deal with these guys that are killers as well, but they've changed so much. And then you're there and you get to know them from their heart. And then you go and you're out in this world at the movie, in the movie business, and you see these stars that are just have their heads so far up their ass. Like, how do you deal with that?
I mean, I feel like first I realized that like, it's just ignorance, right? Like it's not mean-spirited. It's just, they haven't been touched by whatever they need to get touched by yet.
Got it.
And so to me, it's about education. It's about saying, hey, like, do you want to help? Right. And most people that hear about it want to help. I recently, Kim and I got in touch with Peso Pluma, right? Who heard about what we're doing. He's like, okay, I want to meet. How can I help? Right. J. Cole, one of my favorite rappers of all time. How can I help? NLE Choppa, great young rapper. I just want to help, Scott. How can I help? Where do you need me to show up? Right. And so when you meet these people in Hollywood that want to help, or even people like white boy actor Jake Gyllenhaal, right? He was doing a movie where he had to play an ex-con. He's like, I want to go into prison with you and understand this. And he went in and he's one of my founding board members of ARC, and he's been a huge supporter ever since. So again, sometimes it's just like bringing people proximate, right?
Yeah.
Bringing people to see it, right? To meet human beings, to meet changed human beings, right?
Yeah.
That's it. No judgment. Like to me, it's no judgment. It's no judgment when I walk into a prison and know someone did something horrible when they were young and committed a horrible crime, and no judgment when I meet a celebrity whose head's stuck way up their ass and doesn't care about anyone but themselves, because now it's my job to try to get you
Like,
to
all right,
care,
fool,
right?
let me take you one place really quick. See what happens.
Yeah, I'm going to humble your ass real quick.
Love that.
I'm going to humble your ass real quick.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, listen here, fool. That's
Pelican Bay.
Yeah. I probably brought like 200 people into Pelican Bay at this point. Like, but it is.
Is it hard to bring somebody in?
No.
But what if I wanted to go?
I mean, let's go.
I've always, this is like, I guess I always wanted to. Obviously, I've never been able to go because I've always been the one inside, or like, the person in, not the person out. But I feel like I've always wanted to do something like that. So I feel that what I do here, it's kind of like helps my heart, since I am not able to go and or never really tried to go, or, always kind of been a little afraid because of the whole, like, hey, the whole getting denied kind of thing. But I don't know. I always wanted to do something like that.
I feel like
with the kids.
You know what? It's funny. I think all of us in life sometimes are scared to try something because of the fear of failure, right? Or the fear of getting rejected. Like I remember so many times when I was young, like there were steps I didn't take, or obviously things I could have achieved. I feel like at this point, like the number one thing I've gotten over is like any fear of failure, right? Because all my like biggest moments of growth in my life have come from failure, haven't come from successes, right? Because I feel like failure is such a great teacher. Mm-hmm. And if you're smart enough to realize, and I tell this to people incarcerated all the time, right? Because now people incarcerated are so traumatized by the fear of failure, right?
Yes.
Because they felt like failures their whole life. And I'm like, listen, I am who I am today because of failure, not because of success, right? All that matters is that you can get up, right? Like the boxer that gets knocked to the ground, the one that can bounce right back up and keep fighting. Like, to me, that's everything. And so even if it relates to this little tiny thing of you like feeling that, what if I get rejected? Well, who cares?
Well,
because
try
you're
again,
in the same
kind of
place.
vibe.
You're in the
Yeah.
same place you're in right now. There's no loss.
Yes.
By being rejected.
And obviously, like, you've put in all these motions and all these things, and I'm sure a lot of them have gotten rejected, and you just continue to try.
Yeah.
Or did it go through right away?
No, I mean, SB 9, which was the bill to end life without parole for juveniles, right? Elizabeth Calvin from Human Rights Watch, who was the champion of this for 7 years in a row, got lost by 2 votes. Lost 7 years in a row by 2 votes. And ultimately, it was year 8, right? I went on 30 job interviews when I got to LA to try to get in the movie business. I was over 30. My 31st was my interview with Todd Phillips, who I was with for the next 14 years, right? But if I gave up at 29 or 30, I would have never gotten that. I would never have been the producer of The Hangover or Project X or Just Mercy or any of this, right?
What about they call us monsters? Did you have a part of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was an unbelievable director named Ben Lear, producer named Gabe Cowan, who came into the juvenile hall and sat through some Inside Out writers classes and said, like, we're thinking about wanting to do this. And like, to me, again, everything's about humanizing, right?
Yeah.
Humanizing. And I wanted to humanize these young people that were in juvenile hall. They were all in there for very serious crimes, right? Can't get around that. But I was watching this progress of change, and I wanted society to see that, right? Because right now you're seeing like this kind of pendulum swing back towards like law and order, because during COVID, crime went up, smash and grabs, robberies, follow home robberies, all of these things. So when people get scared, when the citizens of anywhere get scared, they vote to tighten things up, right?
Yes.
And so the worst thing for me or anyone that wants to keep people out of prison or change laws are these very high-profile crimes of a follow home robbery and someone getting killed in their own home, or someone getting robbed for their watch on the street, and like all of that happening, or 20 kids going into a business and smash and grabbing stuff. I mean, that's why you saw in this last election, Prop 36 passed to now send people that are committing theft to prison, drug addicts to prison. It's why you saw George Gascon lose, right? Because people are getting scared, right? And they're going to blame anybody, even if it's not that person's fault, right? And so it's our job as storytellers, and what they call us monsters, all of these stories that go out, whether they go out on the news, whether they go out in a movie, in a TV show, we have to humanize people who other people demonize, right? Gang member, be scared of a gang member, be scared of an inmate, be scared of this felon, be scared of this formerly incarcerated individual. It's our job to say, no, don't be scared of them, because even though you might have been labeled a gang member, you're also a father, you're a son, you're a brother, you're a college student, you're a university student, you're helping other kids not have to go in a path into prison just like you. You're much more than what you were once called, right?
Yes.
And so it's our job to unscare society, right? And so that's why I think storytelling is so important. That's why I'm back in the business right now.
That's why. Tell me about your Project X. That's what it's called, right? Project?
Yeah. I would say for like young people, like that's probably, or even old people at this point, right? Like that's probably, it was a movie that me and my friend Alex came up with. And it was a story based on a video we saw of a kid in Australia that threw such a crazy party when his parents were out of town in high school that it like burnt down part of his neighborhood. And so we made Project X, which was this crazy party movie. But one of the coolest things ever is I was able to hire like 2 or 3 dozen kids that I knew in juvenile hall to work on the movies.
You were able to get them out?
No, they were already out.
Oh, okay.
And they were already out, and like some were working as extras, right? Because we had to have 200 kids, high school looking kids, every night to be like fake partiers at the party, and they were getting paid $200 a night to be extras, right? We had others that were working as production assistants on the movie that now got into the unions as union electricians, union construction, grips, camera assistants that are now making $125,000, $150,000 a year
Still
in the unions, right, in the film business. And so Project X was like an incredible ability for me to launch a lot of young people I worked with in juvenile hall, like into the film and television
and
business.
it shows them and it gives them so much more hope.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I was here because of this. Me working now, it's like I don't even want to do anything bad.
Yeah.
Because you're so focused on the right thing.
Yeah, and by the way, you also learn like you can't live 2 lives, right?
Oh, you cannot.
And I tell them this all the time. Like, if you're trying to half step, like you're gonna end up getting locked up and you're gonna lose the career, everything. You have to really focus on like your family. You have to focus on your career. You know what's amazing? It's like even the guys on the prison yards, the guys that were in the shoe forever, guys who people have called the worst of the worst. When my kids are leaving prison, these guys that have been in prison, these lifers that have been in prison for 20, 30, 40 years saying, I better not see you back. Go out there and do this for your family.
That's
do this
right.
for your community. Do this for your people, right? And the amount of support that we've gotten from everyone, and especially the incarcerated community, has been unbelievable.
And it makes everything so much easier
Yeah,
for you to go in there and work
for sure.
and help because they see it. A person that knows they're never going to come home and they're sober in there and that's their life. That's where they live. They don't want to see these young kids be in and out. Like, what are you doing?
Yep.
I feel like it's mostly like the ones that are on drugs that don't want to see change, that are afraid of, reality of them doing life because of their drug problems. I think like, this is what I think. I feel like, I think they need to put like I know this is going to be crazy, right? What I'm going to say, but the younger kids don't need, like the young 18, 19-year-olds don't need to be in there with these 25 and up. I know they're 25 is still super young, but that are all strung out.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
obviously,
it ruins or send them somewhere super far where they can't get anything. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I feel like prison will either make you or break you, right? And I do feel like everything goes up, right, in prison, in terms of like you might just be a weed smoker on the streets, but you're going to prison and like right away you're being introduced to heroin and like things that are much tougher, right? And now with fentanyl, people are dying. I'll say this, like at Ironwood, on a level 3 yard, there were a bunch of guys that came out of the SHU after 30, 35 years. And there was a huge college program. I think out of like 1,000 people in the yard, at least 500, 600 of them were in college, right? But they started having these fentanyl overdoses massively. So a lot of the inmates, incarcerated people, whether they were church-going Christians, whether they were guys that came out of the SHU after 35 years, whether they were just college students and programmers, all came together and said, we're not going to tolerate fentanyl in this yard. Anyone that is having any type of addiction problem, we're going to run 30 AA meetings in 30 days. We're going to do it in the middle of the yard. We're going to make it public. We're going to make it cool. And they brought everyone out.
Because they freaking see.
Yeah. And so it was the incarcerated population coming together to help people, right? To help people get sober, to help people do this. And so I always do think like any time we can keep someone from going to prison and help them in the community, it's a win.
Yeah.
Right? Keep as many young people out of prison as possible. Keep them in the community, whether it's treatment, rehab, whatever it may be. Like prison doesn't need to be the answer because it's not, depending on where you land, et cetera, it's not always helpful, right?
No, it's not helpful.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I should be picking these little fools up.
Yep.
Big time. They go in there for something so small and they come out a mess.
Yeah, and they come in and they start doing drugs right off the bat and they're disrespectful right off the bat and they just don't know just how to carry themselves as mature, respectful people. And so they put themselves in a hole
And we know
right
what that
from the
means.
beginning. Yeah.
Yep. So can you tell me about all these bills that you've passed? It's at least 30 of them.
Yeah.
And what they mean. Because you could tell, I don't know anything about, like, I wouldn't even know what this and this means.
I think, I mean, almost all the bills that almost all were passed in a very bipartisan way. We were able to bring Republicans and Democrats and all types of people together to understand that hope is crucial in the system, right? And like hope is everything. So everything we've done is giving people hope, right? If you change, here's your pathway home. There's no, your only options to die in prison, except for those that have LWOP over the age of 18 right now. And I'm not done with that yet, right? As I say, that's my number one priority this year. But it's to give everybody hope, right? So SB 9, juvenile LWOP, SB 260, juvenile life sentences, SB 261, taking it up to age 25. So 18 to 25-year-olds got the same benefit that those committed crimes as juveniles got.
Okay.
There was a Miranda bill we did, which was law enforcement could interrogate a juvenile without a lawyer or a parent present. Ended that. Ended up getting anyone who ends up becoming a firefighter to be able to expunge their records. Did a lot of other expungement bills that when someone got out, they could expunge their records so they're not saddled with this for every job application they ever do for the rest of their lives. We worked with a bunch of other groups on the felony murder bill. If you were not the main participant in your crime, you now have the chance at resentencing. SB 1391 that turn, rather than sending 14 and 15-year-olds into the adult system, allowing 14 and 15-year-olds to be handled in the juvenile system. And so that's a lot of like, but really like what we always look at is like, how do we create a lot of hope while also protecting public safety,
yes.
right? And that's it. Because like I said, if the people in the community begin to feel scared, then that pendulum swings all the way back to tough on crime, lock them all up, throw away the key, you're never getting out. And we don't want that, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't want that to happen ever. And so right now we're at a moment where that pendulum's starting to swing back. And now I think we have to be very smart about how we stop that. And so me focus on the LWOP bill. When you look at all the life without paroles that have been released through the governors commuting their sentence or other ways, there's been over 100 LWOPs released over the last 10 years. Do you know how many of them have come back to prison out of 100?
How many?
0.
Wow.
The rate of recidivism, of return to prison for LWOPs is 0. If you look at lifers, over 5,000 lifers that have gone through the parole board, what percentage of lifers that committed violent crimes when they were young that are now getting out 15, 20, 25 years later, the rate of recidivism, return to prison, is under 1%. It's 0.5%.
Because they have that hope.
Where your non-violent drug addict has a 90% chance of committing another crime, right? The person that commits a violent crime when they were young and has done that time in prison and gone through the parole board almost never comes back to prison, right? And so giving everybody in there hope to go to the parole board and come home, to me, is the key to a safer society.
Let me ask you this. So when you're planning all these bills, do you ever sit back and think like, okay, these little fools, they know all these bills already been passed, that they could think they could get away with certain things, like, man, do we really want to do this? Because these little fools are kind of crazy sometimes. Like, do you think about that?
I do, but I also, I believe in accountability too, right?
Yeah.
And what is accountability? Like, if
Accepting
you're
what you do.
15 and you get juvenile life and you have to do 10 years, or you're 15 and you get 300 years to life and you have to do 300 years, right? Like, what's accountability? And I think most of the young people I work with, when they get into their mid-20s, 22, 23, 24, 25, the light bulb goes off, right? Like, I've had kids who in juvenile hall at 16 years old were the biggest disrespectful assholes, who, when I see them at prison in 22, 23 years old, they're 100% different people.
Yeah.
They're respectful, they're kind, they're empathetic, they're smart, they have a college degree. And the first thing they say is, Scott, I'm so glad I just ran into you, because I've regretted for so many years being such a dick, being so disrespectful, not appreciating you and all the volunteers coming in and bringing us food and doing holiday meals. And I never said thank you. And I never said how much I appreciated you. And I've thought for all these years how much we appreciate all of you. And I want to tell you that. And that means so much to me. But I don't judge the 16-year-old for not being grateful, right? You're sitting there going through the worst experience of your life, facing your life in prison. I understand it, right? And so I see so much growth when they get into their mid-20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I just had to ask, popped into my head,
Yeah.
Tell me about Peso. You work with him?
Man.
That's your baby? That's your son?
That's my son right there. That's my son. Was with him the day he came in to Somar Juvenile Hall, and the day he left. So deep, that guy. I think people see it in his lyrics, right? But just such a deep thinker, such a deep writer, smart. I love him. That's my guy. Very thoughtful, very wise beyond his years.
Yes. What do you think about his song with Kendrick? Dope, huh?
No surprise.
Yeah.
Nothing that guy does surprises me.
And he's so young.
I think anyone that sees his level of writing and his lyrics and his lyricism, I think anyone's gonna put him on.
Yeah.
Because there's actually some real substance behind it. There was stuff he read to me, he'd open his notebook in juvenile hall and read me something he wrote that was very personal, and I literally would shed a tear because it was so deep, right? So I see him and Kendrick on the same level. To me, that's a no-brainer. Of course Kendrick put him on.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're super proud of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love him.
Very proud of him.
Yeah.
I love him too.
Is there anything else that you want to share?
I think we're good.
That you haven't
I
shared?
think we're good. I'm proud of you too.
Thank you.
Your story is unbelievably inspiring, and the fact that you're here today doing this and raising your son, and
I got two.
The fact that you're here today doing this and raising your kids, and your kids are doing well after everything you've been through, and I'm real proud, and I'm happy to know you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to volunteer with you when you do some kind
I'd
of.
love for you to.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to.
I would love that.
Yep. I appreciate
So
you.
you could count on me for whatever.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Well, you guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram.
Much love.
Yes.